The show begins with Nick, an ex-police officer, who can be seen walking through the streets of New York City. He apparently seems to be on a mission and walks into the Roosevelt Hotel. He makes a reservation with a fake name and is guided by the bellhop towards his room. While dining, he is overheard asking the bellhop for champagne. After having his breakfast, Nick removes his fingerprints from the room and writes something on a piece of paper. Immediately after, Nick opens the window and walks out onto the ledge, apparently ready to commit suicide. After a moment of walking on the ledge, the scene changes to a flashback to his time behind bars. Nick has been sentenced to 25 years in prison for some reason, and he is informed that his final appeal for release has been denied. His ex-partner and friend, Mike, pays him a visit in the prison and has a friendly conversation with him. Mike soon informs him that his father is dying and that he will talk to the warden to get him a day outside to meet his family. Later at night, Nick goes for jogging when a police officer sadly informs him about his father's death. Nick is allowed to attend his father's funeral, where he meets his brother Joey and his girlfriend Angie. After the funeral, Nick and Joey engage in a furious argument about their father's sad demise, while two policemen are on watch. They immediately engage in a fight, and Nick uses this chance to skillfully snatch the officer's gun. He orders Joey to grab the keys and uncuff him, while holding the cops at gunpoint. He takes Joey's vehicle and drives off into the woods. The police department is immediately alerted about his escape, and in the ensuing chase, Nick eventually comes across a railway track and is badly hit by an incoming train. The vehicle is destroyed completely, but as the cops approach the car, they surprisingly find him missing. Nick keeps running till the evening and enters his storage unit to find some necessary items, as the flashback ends. Back to the present, Nick is still on the ledge, as the crowd below begins to notice him and calls the police. The firefighters and police department immediately rush to the scene and shut down the block for traffic and other commuters. Detective Doherty arrives and takes charge of the scene. Doherty enters the hotel and tries to negotiate with Nick. Detective Marcus also joins the show and orders his staff members to handle the crowd situation. As Doherty tries to talk, Nick refuses to speak to him and instead requests to speak with Detective Mercer, but also gives a strict deadline of 30 minutes. Doherty and Marcus also find his message in the room, which says this. They immediately make a call to Detective Mercer and inform her about the critical situation. She is not really in the mood of work, but has no other choice. In the meantime, the cops prepare a safety air cushion in case anything unfortunate happens. Mercer arrives at the scene and takes too long to enter the hotel because she is unaware of the 30 minutes deadline. She gets the details from Doherty and learns that only 2 minutes are left to his jump. She is not so serious about the threat, and Nick begins his countdown from 10. As Nick's countdown reaches 1, the dumb girl finally shows her face to him. Nick starts by telling her that nobody else can assist him, and that's why he had to call her. After understanding the situation, she orders Doherty to clear the room, to which he reluctantly agrees, but only for 5 minutes. The scene changes to Englander, a successful business tycoon and real estate developer, who somehow has a connection to Nick's past. He has a press conference with some investors, but is informed about some delay in their arrival, due to the presence of that man on the ledge. Marcus questions the bellhop from the opening scene, but he doesn't seem to have noticed any unusual behavior about Nick. Additionally, Doherty informs Mercer that they were unable to find his fingerprints in the room, making them unable to get his ID. As she tries to get some details from Nick, it is revealed that Nick is secretly using a microphone to communicate with Joey and Angie, who are currently a few blocks away from this hotel. With Nick's assistance, they are on their way to commit a burglary in Englander's shop. According to the situation, it is revealed that Nick is just trying to distract whole New York City, just to provide a perfect opportunity to Angie and Joey to pull off their heist. They set some explosives to make their way into the Englander building from the top. When they are ready to go, Nick pretends to commit suicide, successfully grabbing New York's attention once more, and giving Joey a chance to proceed without getting noticed. After a moment, Mercer offers him a cigarette, as a pretense to get some of his fingerprints. After having a brief conversation, he returns the cigarette, and she hands it over to the authorities to get any partial print. In the meantime, Angie and Joey enter the building through the ventilation shafts, and keep Nick updated. Suddenly, A chopper appears from nowhere on top of Nick, successfully blowing Mercer's careful planning to shit. Nick gets enraged and blames her for bringing up the chopper. Angie and Joey continue their mission of heist, but they come across a heat sensor, which forces them to back away. Since Nick is an experienced ex-police officer, Joey asks him for assistance to disable the heat sensor. Mercer is unaware of their communication because he is indirectly guiding Joey while talking to her. Using his code word, he informs Joey to cool things down, which means that they have to use a fire extinguisher to disable the sensor. As the detectives finally get through his real identity, Mercer finds out that Nick is the wanted criminal accused of stealing a Monarch diamond, shattering it into 1,000 pieces, and selling the fragments. As for the hotel, Detective Marcus says it actually belongs to Englander, who also runs a jewelry trade just across the street. When Mercer confronts him about it, Nick claims that the business tycoon, Englander, set him up because he was the owner of that diamond. He continues by saying that Englander still possesses the gem. Nick elaborates that Englander came dangerously close to declaring bankruptcy due to the business's significant losses. The tycoon pretended the diamond was stolen in order to collect $40 million in insurance proceeds. Joey and Angie's plan to steal the Monarch diamond, to use as evidence in their brother's trial, becomes clear. While everything is going on, Mike stumbles onto Nick's storage unit, where he unearths documentation pertaining to Nick, his ex-partner, and the murdered police officer whose identity Nick adopted. Mike destroys these files after receiving a call from Mercer, who is curious as to whether or not Nick is telling the truth about his innocence. When Marcus sends some tactical officers to the jewelry exchange to ensure everything is okay, Nick secretly alerts Joey and asks him to abort the mission for some minutes. In order to buy some time for Angie and Joey to hide, Nick throws bundles of dollars from the ledge, distracting the city once more and creating a chaotic situation. As the tactical officers enter the building, they are unable to find anyone, since Angie and Joey have taken refuge in the ventilation ducts in the last second. They also check through the high roller's vault, and everything seems fine. As the officers leave the building, the pair returns to continue their heist. After that, Mercer asks Nick about the real robbers of the Monarch diamond, to which he claims that some cops were involved in the whole thing. She is reluctant at first, but eventually agrees to trust him. When Mike arrives at the scene, the first person he sees is Marcus, who is holding the same file that Nick had in his cell. Mike snatches the file as a pretense to study it, and goes to a restroom. He examines the files, pulls out a few papers, and retains them for himself before handing them over to Mercer. Since Mercer is now beginning to trust Nick, she stops him from approaching the window to speak to his ex-partner. The bellhop enters the room and brings some food for Nick. While Nick enjoys his meal, Angie gears herself to break into the vault. However, she lacks confidence to crawl through the small vent, but Nick encourages her to do it anyway. She eventually agrees and crawls through the vent. She enters the vault through the ceiling and begins to deactivate the security sensors. Nick assists her in cutting the wires to the circuit board, which successfully deactivates the security protocols. Joey then uses his lock-breaking skills to break into the main locker and begin their search for the Monarch diamond. However, the team is surprised to discover that the diamond is not in that location. Additionally, Mercer discovers what appear to be bomb plans when perusing Nick's file. When she asks him about the bomb, he doesn't reveal anything. As Marcus orders his tactical backup to help with the arrest of Nick, she also climbs onto the ledge, forcing the tactical team to stop their operation of arresting Nick. At this time, he goes on to tell her that he's planning his first diamond heist in an effort to establish his innocence, and that he'll need her assistance. Mercer is skeptical at first, but ultimately agrees with him. When Joey informs Nick that the diamond is not there, he asks him to go with the plan B. They set off an alarm in the building, and Englander is dispatched to the scene. He enters the broken vault and starts looking for something. It's the Monarch diamond, which he retrieves from another secret safe and stores in his outfit. When he gets to his hotel office, Joey and Angie are already there waiting for him. Joey holds him at gunpoint and takes the diamond out of his pocket. They handcuff him to a safe and leave the office. The pair then takes the diamond out of its setting, places it in a bag, and hands it off to the same bellhop from the film's opening scene. On the other hand, as Mercer goes back to the room, Marcus sends down the tactical support to arrest Nick, but he avoids capture by the police, and runs into a nearby structure. Mercer chases after him, attempting to catch up by another entrance. The bellhop and he cross paths again, and this time he grabs the diamond. After a brief pursuit, Nick is located on the roof of the same building as the tactical support. Mercer is there and tells him to back off. Nick agrees to surrender because the diamond is safe, and he can establish his innocence afterward. Unfortunately, Joey and Angie run into Marcus at the hotel, and he promptly has them arrested. Marcus then also shows up on the roof, and orders his cops to take Mercer away. He then calls Englander to bring Joey on the same roof where Nick is being detained, revealing to the audience that Marcus has been on Englander's side the whole time. As a result of the businessman's decision to spare Joey's life in exchange for the diamond, Nick is forced to give him the diamond. After Englander leaves, Marcus puts pressure on Nick to kill himself if he cares about his brother's well-being. Thankfully, Mike is able to get there in time to shoot Marcus. Mike, however, also takes a bullet to the chest, while Marcus is saved by his bulletproof vest. Just before he passes away, Mike claims that although he helped Englander to fake the diamond's theft, he had no idea Nick would be framed. Marcus tries to kill Nick, but Mercer is already there with a gun, and she shoots him in the neck, killing the police officer. As Englander is escaping the scene, Nick devises another strategy to catch him, jumping off the building and landing onto the safety air cushion. However, Nick is stopped by a nearby cop before approaching Englander, but the crowd jumps in to help him. He beats Englander down, takes the diamond from his pocket, and displays it to the public as an evidence that he is innocent. Englander is arrested immediately after, and Nick finally heaves a sigh of relief. In the next scene, Nick and Mercer finally meet on the ground, and she is happy that she trusted him. They go to a pub, where the crowd cheer for Nick's brilliant act of the day. The bellhop reappears, and we learn that he is actually Nick's father, whose name is Frank, and he faked his death to help out his son. Angie and Joey also join them for celebration, where Joey proposes to Angie with a diamond ring, apparently stolen from Englander's vault. She accepts his proposal with a burst of emotions, and they all celebrate together as the show comes to a close.